Okay, so let's move on to the second theme,
Hmm.
which is attunement. And I like the word attunement, but essentially it means the very simple idea of paying attention to ourselves,
Yeah.
paying attention to all of this. And there are different ways we can pay attention. And I thought it'd be interesting to talk about like the difference or the juxtaposition of the way you talk about it and the way I
Mhm.
talk about it with my clients. So um, I talk about interoceptive awareness, which is essentially our ability to perceive sensations in our body. So being able to detect hunger cues, or when we're tired, or when we're thirsty, or when we have to go pee, those are
Hmm.
sensations. But also being able to detect emotions in our body, those are also sensations.
For sure.
And emotions live in our body, and this is what I help my clients understand. Thoughts are in our head, emotions are in our body. And when we can recognize how emotions feel in our body, then we're able to process them and move them through because they are energy instead of them staying stuck or stagnant. And there have been, I'm sure you've seen like the research that shows the heat maps
Yeah.
of people
Fascinating.
have, I know it's so fascinating when people feel angry or anxious or fear or shame or joy, different parts of their body light up with heat. And so
Yeah.
that shows that emotions live in the body, there are sensations attached to emotions. And so I help my clients tune into what are they feeling at these different levels of energy and the different sensations. And then building capacity to sit with discomfort and building capacity to honor what's coming up for them and allowing that instead of feeling like, oh, that's a threat and I've got to
Exactly.
disconnect or dissociate, like you were talking about before. So that's interoceptive awareness. That's like being attuned to how we're feeling on the inside and then working from the inside out. But you talk about proprioception, which is the
Hmm.
hardest word to say ever.
It is. It's not the easiest word by any means. No. No.
So tell us, what it is, why it's important, how you help your clients with proprioception.
Yeah. And I'll also link it to what you just shared, right? Because you and I will have those conversations, how this is all connected.
Yeah.
So I like to describe proprioception as our sixth sense that we didn't know that we had. So you can see, smell, taste, feel, and hear. But proprioception really is, if I was to close my eyes, my brain has a map of where my body is in space based on information that it's receiving from my body, from the joints in my body. So when two bones come together, they have these receptors around those bones that is constantly feeding information up to the brain. And so if we have a nice solid structure and the joints are moving properly, and the fascinating part is the highest density of these receptors are around our spine and our feet. Totally makes sense, right? The
Yeah.
brain wants to know where my center of mass is, and our feet are what engage with the earth, and what, every step we take, there's a ton of information going to our brain. So I find that in a culture where we sit a lot, that there is the joints stop moving as well as they can, and so the brain's not getting this information. And when the brain's not getting this information, it starts making it up, because like proprioception is what protects you. Like when you get a new pair of shoes and you're walking down the street and you do that stutter step, like you hit the curb, and you is what determines whether you're hitting the curb or if you're going to be able to catch your body, right?
Yeah.
Is that map. When everything gets disoriented, can the brain figure out how to fire all these muscles at the right time to protect you from falling?
Mm.
So proprioception, and how I see how it comes into play in my office and directly links to what you are talking about is, for example, if I'm carrying emotion that I don't have capacity or an understanding about, right? I see structural changes around those, how a body holds emotion. So for example, I see a lot of grief and shame in the chest area. And so the body, if you're not processing it, if you're not moving it, the body's going to protect it, right? So we should see our shoulders rolling forward. We see our rib cage shifting down. And I'm kind of in this hunched position, kind of hard to model on here, but I think you
I
understand what
see it. Yeah.
So proprioception is the awareness of like what is physically happening with my structure. And what I notice as we get people adjusted and they start opening up again, and then they get exercises to work on this and they get information about how to change their ergonomics, for example, like how they're sitting at the computer, because it's all interconnected, right? Mm-hmm. Like I'm protecting. I also have a desk job. I'm also not moving my body. So it's like this, and you see this rounding and constriction that happens as we get older. That's not a guarantee of aging. That is a response to our environment, right? Mm-hmm. So that understanding that we have so much control here. So proprioception, I have my patients start to be really aware, like what position is your rib cage in right now? How are you breathing? How, what emotions are you feeling in your body? And also knowing that when we get stuff moving, emotions sometimes release, and that's okay. Again, that permission, that's a lot of times it's like people who are grieving and we start opening things up, they have more access to their grief, right? Mm-hmm. And that's why I love what you do because that's the capacity piece. It's like, can I sit with the tolerance of the discomfort of this grief rather than having to displace it? And so that's why I think like the understanding and partnership, not only with my patients, but the partnership that I have with people like you and other practitioners to make sure that people have access and their needs met when stuff starts coming up, right? But it is such a beautiful thing that when our body structure comes back, when joints start moving better, the brain gets a really clear picture again. And I've seen that make just all sorts of huge changes in people's lives.
Yeah, really well said. And it shows the bidirectional link too, between the body opening up, sending the signals to the brain, but then also how the brain can help the body to open up. And that's why I think we need, as humans, we need this wraparound support. We need the emotional support. We need the physical kind of body work support as well. And you were talking about if we can start tolerating discomfort. I also want to add that sometimes we can't, but the point there is to recognize that we can't tolerate it, right? And then to recognize, what do we need as an outlet, or what do we need to feel safer? And so sometimes that opening that you're talking about physically can help be a relief. And I know you've seen that as well and have talked about that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that that's just that attunement, right? That awareness of, I see a lot of people like they don't realize that they're hitting a capacity, right? They don't realize that what they're experiencing is a discomfort of a certain emotion. And I think you and I get the privilege of being able to sit with people and, again, like, okay, well, let's get curious about what this could mean and how you interpret what's happening in your body.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It, as you said, and I said, both of us, comes back to curiosity and just being present for what's coming up, and then present for the choice, whether we choose to do something about it, process it, or we choose to like mindfully check out. That can happen,
right?
too.
And I think that's a curiosity and compassion, like self-compassion, right? We're not going to make, I would love that all of my emotions and feelings are perfectly regulated and I make no mistakes, right? But, I've been working at this stuff for a while and I still make mistakes. And it's the difference between like going down a shame cycle or holding some compassion for myself. Like, I had a rough day yesterday and I went, and made a choice that wasn't the best thing for my body. And I see it. I recognize why I did it. And today's a new day. Versus, especially again, I see women go down this, I'm bad. I screwed up. I don't deserve, I pay such close attention to the words that people use when they're talking about their body, because our body hears this, right? Our body holds on to these things, and our body, our genius, beautiful body trying to establish safety will distort and will improperly adapt just to keep you moving from day to day. So that's why there's that mental intervention of, oh, okay, I see why I did that. And I forgive myself if I need to.
Right. Yeah, you said it well, improperly adapt, like it's maladaptive, the
Mhm.
ways that our body learns and then the ways that our kind of emotional patterns and behavioral patterns develop. They're maladaptive, but they happen for a reason
Yeah,
at that point. And so if we can work on chipping away at that shame that they're present,
right.
and that can help us work with what's actually coming up for us.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like when somebody's like, "Oh, my back hurts again." Like I'm like I just have an old back. Like this is what it is. It's like, no, let's ask questions. Like, why could this be happening? What has happened in the last couple days? How is stress manifesting in your body,
Mhm.
presenting as pain? And again, just I think widening the scope of the conversation.
Exactly. And in terms of widening the scope of conversation and just how we are with our body and in relationship with our body on a day-to-day basis, to close out this conversation around this theme of attunement, is there one practice that we can do to improve or fine-tune proprioception, like in our everyday life, that
Yeah,
you would suggest?
absolutely. My favorite thing to teach patients is about our rib cage, right? So we learn about our body and anatomy in 2D structures, and our body is 3D. We have 3 dimensions. So if we are thinking about where our rib cage is in space, so it's like, here's my rib cage, it's a 3D entity. The first thing I do is just have people sit up and just kind of lift their sternum up. So I describe this as if I had like a volleyball with a logo on it, and I had the logo down and I wanted the logo to be up, there's like a bit of a rotational piece. So
Mm,
what that happens in our body is it's a lifting up from the sternum and opening up from the mid back. So I can visualize my rib cage is almost like that ball that I'm rotating up and back. So from there, the rib cage just right there is in a better position. The body is going to get, the brain is going to get different information. The musculature is going, that's been holding it in a downward position is going to relax. And then from there, it's having that, what I call a proprioceptive experience, but I think it's also an attunement experience of like, okay, so I feel where my rib cage is in space, which to some people just feeling where their body is in space, that's step one, because we
yeah.
never do that, right? But
Mhm.
if that feels comfortable and safe, then from there, taking a couple big deep breaths, trying to generate it from the belly, and really trying to get the rib cage to expand down and out, rather than a lot of the times when we're stressed, we go into this like a stress breathing pattern where it looks like I'm just lifting my shoulders, I'm using all of this musculature versus using my diaphragm. I can't show you my rib cage right now, but when I use my diaphragm, the rib cage drops down and out. And so start playing with that engagement with your breath.
Mhm.
And then the third step, if it feels safe and you have capacity to do so, is checking in with your body when you feel stressed, and then seeing where your breathing pattern is. And that's where rewiring happens. That's where proprioceptive input changes, is if you can disrupt it. It's like, oh, I'm stressed, I'm in a stress breathing pattern, I'm just going to take 5 or 10 seconds right now and just re-engage, kind
Mhm.
of feel my rib cage, feel how it's moving, and then come back to the present moment.
Mhm. Yeah, and that checking in when stressed is key.
Mm-hmm.
And that comes up with my clients because it's when we need these tools, but it's the times when we most likely are going to forget to use the tools
Sure.
too.
Yep.
And that's why it's so important to practice these things, I think, when we don't feel like we need them, because it's exercising that muscle of tuning in that way that
Exactly.
may feel more like the muscle memory is present
Mm-hmm.
when we really need it during stressful times. Yeah.
100%.
And then the rib cage work, I think of my clients who deal with body grief.
Yeah.
They're grieving an old body or a younger body in past times, or they've gone through an illness or something where their body's changed and there's a lot of grief around their body. And
Yeah.
so, how can we inhabit our body and embrace our body in a way that may feel safer or less threatening,
Mm-hmm.
but really brings in some compassion and some awareness in a gentle way. So I love the breathing you're talking about and working with the rib cage in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.